How's it going, everybody? We are very, very close to draft season, and today I'm just going to be giving you guys my final top 50 for the 2024 NFL Draft. The first thing I want to mention is that I actually recorded this video like a week ago, but I had a lot of drastic changes. Some more news came out, obviously, for these prospects that influenced how I view them, as well as so this recording will be about a week before the draft. I'll be posting it a few days before, really. But obviously, there have been a little bit more changes. Some of my views of these prospects have changed, of course. But the main thing that I do want to mention is that I will be streaming the 2024 NFL Draft, guaranteed days one and day two, guaranteed. But on April 25th at around 7:45, I will be beginning or starting my stream for the 2024 NFL Draft. I'll be streaming all throughout the night and then be putting out videos after. And then on the 26th, I'll be live at 7 p.m., of course, for day two. But to go over the board, what you guys are looking at, of course, is my 2024 NFL Draft board. If you guys want access, you can go to my Patreon. Link is in the description. The board is free, completely free if you guys want to access it while you're viewing the draft, or if you just want to look at my rankings and my thoughts on some of these prospects. Go view that board, of course. Put a lot of time and effort into it. But however, for this video, you can see, of course, the color coding. You can see on here. The only things you're really going to need to know are the colors for the first and second round grades. But mainly for the top, I would say, for the top 16 guys, my views on them have not changed. Marvin, Caleb, Brock Bowers, Drake May, Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt, Odunze, Daniels, Murphy, Arnold, Latu, Fuaga, Verse, Mitchell, Turner, and then Jazan Newton. Again, I've done prospect breakdowns on every single one of these prospects if you're interested in any of them. I've done videos on all of them. Oh no, except Verse. Verse is the only one that I didn't get to this year. However, I want to be going over just some of the other moves or other updates. As you can see on this side of the screen, you can see some movement here. But mainly, I'll start off with the first one is Cooper DeJean. I know that video did decently well. I think it hit 1,000 views as of now, as I'm recording this video. However, I had Cooper DeJean as my cornerback 3. I am moving him down a bit. It's more or less because I got to guys like Jackson Powers Johnson. I watched his film after Cooper DeJean. I also watched Nate Wiggins' film. I moved him up too. I moved him up very, very, very close with Cooper DeJean though. And I kind of revisited a bit of what I saw from Cooper DeJean, and it's more or less. I don't necessarily know how much he can thrive or potentially thrive within the boundary, of course. I think he can get burned deep, even though he has good straight line speed. The main issue with him is his hip flexibility. It's pretty stiff. But again, physical guy, great returner, and as well as I still have him as a first round grade and 23rd on my board, it's just more or less I kind of really liked McKinstry. I liked Wiggins as well. And unfortunately, Cooper DeJean does fall a bit, but as well as I don't think my views on DeJean really changed. I still think he can thrive well in the slot. Moved Franklin a bit up, but more importantly, I moved Fatanu up a ton, as well as Komari Lassiter, who I'll get to in a second. That's obviously the huge mover on the screen, as well as I'm going to make this a bit larger. But the main one, I'll get to Lassiter in a second, but Fatanu, love his movement. He had a great combine. I looked at a bit more of Washington tape, more or less for the offensive line, like Rosengarten, looking at Penix in the pocket, and then looking at Fatanu. Just kind of came up on pretty much all those guys, really. Fatanu, great movement. Maybe lacking a bit in the power department. Maybe not the best run blocker, but again, very solid pass blocker because he hits his landmines very effectively, just because his shuffle is so smooth, and he's got great athletic ability. And yeah, I moved Fatano up into my top 30. And I did move down Olafashano a bit less. I do have some issues about him within, again, the power department. I think his agility and his flexibility make up a lot for his strength. And setting the edge, he can lose against a lot smaller guys, and as well as looking at G2 Tulamolawau, Ohio State edge rusher, how he could dominate him, especially getting into his chest early. But again, Olafasanu, great agility and athletic ability as well. But Kamari Lassiter, he's the guy that made a huge boom. Watched him at Georgia. He's just got a crazy physical nature, even though he did run a 4.64, which I know turns a lot of people off from him because everybody really loves 40 times. But if we're putting it in perspective of the film, it didn't look like he got burned a ton. Receivers can get the edge on him, but Lassiter is just so handsy, really. He's very physical, especially at the line of scrimmage, especially when he's legally allowed to combat hands. He reminds me a bit of Sauce Gardner with his technique. Everybody complains that Sauce Gardner is holding, but in reality, the reason why he doesn't get called for it a lot is because he knows when and when not to use his hands, mainly at the beginning of the line, which is what Kamari Lassiter really thrives in, as well as gotta adjust my camera a bit, as well as great in press, very impactful in the run game as well, and I think he can fit great in the slot. And slots are being very slots are getting or their value is increasing as the days goes by, and I think that Lassiter is clearing away my cornerback 6, as well as I moved up Penix a bit. I think people are way too low on Penix. I know the age and the injury history is there, but if we're looking at his just straight ability, he is very good, as well as he is almost pinpoint accuracy. It seems at times he can thread balls in very effectively. He can hit the sidelines, can hit the middle of the field, has good pocket mobility. It's just more or less for me, that 4.4 speed or 4.5 speed, whatever he ran at the pro day, it doesn't show up on tape at all. And he can make some questionable interceptions. He's got a gunslinger mentality, I would say. Can ignore the check down a bit, but I mean, I don't. It's not that I clearly get the Penix, the why people are low on Penix, but I think it is a bit overblown. I think he can still be a top or be a somewhat successful quarterback at the NFL level, and I think he's a second round shoo-in for the second. Move Chop Robinson down a bit. I think I've explained a bit of why I'm still low on Chop Robinson, even though I have him in my top 32. He's a 2-down edge rusher. I don't think he can't play the run very effectively, and it seems like a lot of his moves are really from one move, which is just a quick ghost rush or just beating somebody off the line, off the edge. Doesn't have a very consistent plan or a deep bag of pass rush moves, as well as not having the not the strongest edge rusher, doesn't set the edge as best, but again, this guy has a ton of potential as a pass rusher, especially with his explosiveness and bend off the edge. I think it's one of the best in the class. And then I moved to T'Vondre Sweat, big time down. Arrested for a DUI. I think it's a multiple time offense for him, which means that he's had 2 or more DUIs. Or DWI, drinking while intoxicated, drinking under the influence. But T'Vondre Sweat being rumored to be a big party guy, blah, 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 character concerns, whatever. I'm kind of looking at the arrest because that's a clear indication of at least something. Again, multiple time arrests, I'm fairly certain. But the main thing about T'Vondre Sweat is I don't think he plays the way that people think. He's a 366-pound edge rusher. Nose tackle, but he's really not a nose tackle. He played only 52 snaps out of his 410 or something. Only played 52 in the nose tackle or the 1 tech. He mainly is a 3 tech, but again, great run defender, as well as his main pass rush move is just forklifting guys. So I wouldn't completely erase him off of my board like some people are, but I did have to deduct him a bit. As well as move Tyler Guyton a bit down. He's still very raw, in my opinion. I looked back on a little bit of Oklahoma. Very raw technically with his hand placement. It's more or less he really likes to envelop guys because he's 6'7", has a very long wingspan. But I think if he does go in the first round, I wouldn't be extremely surprised because he does have a good amount of potential, and he has the size and he has the movement or good athletic ability as well. It's just more or less the technique-wise and footwork-wise, it's a bit raw. I think he still has a bit of work to go there. Ricky Pearsall is moving up a ton on my board. My friend Frozen Football, who I don't think he has posted a video yet. However, I've talked with him on stream multiple times, done a video or a mock draft with him. Ricky Pearsall, good routes, good size, very sturdy frame. I think he's like 6'1", 210 pounds, ran at 4.4 at the combine as well, has good deep speed, and has very secure hands. Does not drop the ball a ton. Cam Hart, I did move down a bit, but I am still higher on Cam Hart than a few other guys. He's 6'3", 202 pounds. He was the only guy that I really thought gave Marvin Harrison a run for his money outside of Will Johnson, who is, I think, the best cornerback in college football this year. Cam Hart is pretty good. Great athletic profile, but it's more or less the stats on him are a bit lower because, man, he only allowed 15 catches in 12 games. But the Notre Dame kind of was on and off with their competition, but I really looked at the games that he had a major assignment, and Marvin Harrison was one of them. The length that he possesses and his natural ability. That's, I think, what is best about Cam Hart. But again, moved him down a bit because I'm just not as experienced with him. I only watched 2 games, really, of Notre Dame's defense. So I did have to move him back, as well as looking at some advanced statistics. But I would not be surprised if Cam Hart does succeed right away. Bo Nix, I moved up 8 spots, but it's more or less because I moved some of these guys down and out of the board, and as well as Bo Nix, I'm very comfortable with, more or less, or per se with the NFL. You can't just luck into 77% accuracy. He's matured all the way throughout college at Auburn. His accuracy was his main issue, and now at Oregon, his best attribute is his accuracy. Can hit all areas of the field, but maybe doesn't have the strongest arm or the best pocket mobility. He also didn't have that many difficult edge rusher assignments. Braylon Trice was, I think, the best edge rusher that he faced all year. I don't know if he faced Laiya Latu. However, the thing about Bo Nix is I do think he is at the peak of his playing ability. I don't think he's a guy that just keeps on improving at the NFL level. I think he's as fully matured as we're going to see, as well as he's going to turn 24, or if he is not 24 already. But speaking about in the pocket, he's one of the more secure guys. I think he plays a lot like Kirk Cousins, in my opinion. He can hit all areas of the field, but I don't think he can fully lead a team. That's why I have a late second round grade on him. Patrick Paul moved down a bit. Great pass blocker, had a 91.6 pass blocking grade, which was first. Whatever the grade was, it was first in the FBS this year. The only issue that I may have with him is run blocking, as well as the competition that he faced at Houston. Not that many great teams. As well as Ja'Tavion Sanders is one of the biggest movers that I have negatively. Theo Ash did touch on a thing that I kind of agree with Sanders, and is that the fact that he's not a lot of his catches are either really schemed open, or as well as a lot of his catches are big after the catch numbers, where it's just a kind of a wide open field. But what Theo Ash did point out that I didn't really see was that he is a complete negative as a blocker. However, what I disagree about him is that he's a lot better of a receiver than I think he thinks he is. It's not that his evaluation is wrong. It's just more or less I can see a bit more of why Sanders is getting a good amount of draft hype, as well as why he's considered the tight end too. It's more or less he just does not drop the ball. He's got soft hands, can run some pretty good routes, as well as has some good speed and has good physical nature at the catch point, more or less, but not as dominant physical nature, as well as he does shy away from blocking assignments. I think he's a pure receiver at the NFL level. And then Darius Robinson, I have moved down a bit. The thing about Darius Robinson that I don't love is that he, again, does not have a deep bag of pass rush moves, but I can't necessarily blame him because he is he's a 285-pound long wingspan edge rusher. He really relies on his power a ton. He reminds me kind of Tyree Wilson from last year, a guy with a long wingspan, really heavy, really strong. But again, relying on your power all the time is something that just is not sustainable at the NFL level, really. But again, Darius Robinson has just got some real power, and I think he can play a 3-4 defensive end or a gap assignment against 2 blockers. You got the tackle here. The tackle here, left tackle, and then you got the guard. So he would play right here. And I think he can man that responsibility. And then the new addition is a guy that I really finally got to, which was I got to Michigan film finally. So I got to see more of Mike Stammerman still, and really like him. He's got phenomenal instincts, great hands, again, 6 interceptions. You can't ignore that. But as well, really good feel for zone coverage. And I think he can very much succeed at the slot. He is currently my slot number 1, like my true slot. Very close to him. I want to look at my board. Who is my slot? Outside of Cooper DeJean, because he technically is, but he's really a hybrid. He's a boundary or slot hybrid. True slot, I think Mike Stammerman still is the clear best. And then you got Chris Abrams-Draine, and then Jarian Jones, possibly. But that's going to do it. Oh, yeah, the other thing I wanted to touch on is J.J. McCarthy. Watched his film. It's not that I don't think J.J. McCarthy can be a good NFL quarterback. It's just more or less right now, evaluating him, he's just not a top 5 overall pick. I think I would really. You can definitely justify a late first round pick, especially because he's 21 years old. You can definitely develop him. He has a lot of the structural things that are you where you look for where he has very solid footwork. I'll definitely give him that. He can move in the pocket very well and knows when to escape and when he doesn't. I think that's more of an innate thing that a lot of quarterbacks kind of just have or they don't. A guy like Justin Fields, I don't think has that innate nature to whether knowing when to eject and when to step up in the pocket. And then a guy who really has that innate feel is Patrick Mahomes, of course. But JJ McCarthy, the thing that I'm really questionable about him is pretty much all on his arm and his timing. It's more or less he consistently throws behind receivers. Receivers have to track back to deep balls. He's overthrowing a ton of guys. It's just those little inconsistent mistakes, as well as everything was really short for Michigan, was sub 10 yards, a lot of curls, a lot of comebacks, a lot of out routes, a lot of digs, a lot of very simple stuff, and it was very much carried by the run game. We've seen the big games. The Washington game was really dictated by the run game. The run game really brought Michigan back into the TCU game, I would say, as well as Blake Corum, 27 touchdowns. But as well as JJ McCarthy, he's I can see the potential and how you can build him, but he just really reminds me not as a but how do I explain this? He's my player comp for him is Zach Wilson, but it's not in terms of how they'll succeed at the NFL level. It's not in terms of their personality or their any of that stuff. I think I'm looking at it critically I've watched almost every single snap Zach Wilson has had, hours of film within him, and the main difference between the two is their footwork. Zach Wilson has no mechanics, and JJ McCarthy has very good mechanics, but they make very similar mistakes. They struggle with leading receivers, especially up the field, or receivers have to always stop, or they're overthrowing, or they're throwing on one velocity, especially over the middle of the field that can cause some interceptions. I know JJ McCarthy didn't have that much trouble with interceptions, but when he did, it was, he was either getting baited or it was just kind of an airmail. But yeah, those are my thoughts on JJ McCarthy. If you want me to go a little bit deeper into those thoughts, you guys can go watch my video on him. But yes, I'll go over the board one more time. You want to pause the video, and that was my shorter top 50. I know that the other two have gone like 30 minutes. I'm currently on the 18th minute of this recording, but. Again, if you guys want to view my 2024 NFL Draft Board, you guys can go to my Patreon. It is free, of course, and as well as make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. 95% of you guys are not subscribed, so if you do that, it's a big help. It only takes a second. And join me for the 2024 NFL Draft stream on April 25th at 8 p.m. But with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next video.